Hello, and welcome to our stories, the stories of immigrants who come to this country looking for the American dream, but looking also to show with their lives how God inspires every single one of our movements. My hero of today, it's a girl who came at 4 years old thinking she was coming to Disneyland. She just never went back. The story of a girl who worked really hard all her life to achieve the American dream, which is not fame and fortune and money, which is just the ability to live peacefully with her mother, her father, to enjoy a family with love and peace. Today, I want to tell you the story of a friend of mine who I admire and appreciate with all my heart. Today, I present you to Astrid SILVA. Hi Astrid!
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here today.
Me too, this is wonderful.
So, Astrid was coming to Disneyland when she was 4 years old.
Yes.
And that's all you remember?
That's, I remember, the biggest excitement was my dad was living here. My dad had already come in 1989 to the United States.
When you were?
I was a year old.
So you didn't know that?
I didn't know, I knew him on the phone. And we would always talk to him on the phone, and my mom made sure that I had conversations with him. So I think the biggest excitement was I was going to go to Disneyland, but it was going to be Disneyland with my papi. I was going to get to see him and touch him, and that was the exciting part. And I remember, my family, my dad's family took us to the bus station, and they said, they were being so emotional and hugging, and to me, we were going to be back. So it was just, okay, excitement. I was gonna go to Disneyland, and I was gonna see Mickey Mouse, and that was it. And then I remember when my mom and I crossed the river, my biggest fear was my mom had dressed me up completely. Like, my dad had told her, wear this clothes that I'm sending you to blend in, the acid wash jeans and the Mickey Mouse t-shirt. And my mom was like, how are we gonna see you for the first time in this clothes? And so she dressed me up in my full birthday outfit, down to the patent leather shoes. And so when we were crossing the river, my biggest fear to me was that my shoes were dirty. Because we were on the banks of the Rio. And that was my biggest fear. And now looking back, I can't imagine the fear my mom had about me and her, going
Crossing
across
the
a
river.
river, but I was worried about my shoes.
So, Border Patrol did not stop your mom? Nobody saw you guys?
No, thank God. And because of that, I remember we got to the other side and we were on the raft with the big tire. My mom tells me now that I asked her, can we do it again? Because to me it was a game, it was fun, and my mom was just like, let's go. And then we got there, and once we were already in the United States, and we got to the airport and everything, and I got to meet my dad, and that was just the most wonderful thing ever. And I remember one of my first memories that I can remember is the sliding glass doors at the airport.
Because you never saw
because I had never seen them
the
before.
doors opening by themselves?
And I just remember running and then stopping, and the doors opened, and that was the United States for me. The magical doors that you didn't have to touch.
So it was a lot of excitement. You met your dad for the first time, but then life went on, right?
Yes.
And life went on in Las Vegas?
So we moved to Inglewood, California first, in different areas in Southern California, because my dad was working at a company that was moving. So, he established us in Southern California where he could reach us with our other family members, extended family. I remember the first moment that I arrived. I thought we were just gonna walk in and Disneyland was everywhere, and I was excited, and we lived there for a while. My dad kept working, and
What does your dad do?
My dad works in landscaping. He's an irrigation technician. He was the oldest oldest boy of his family, and so he had always had to work from a very, very young age. So whatever it was that he was working at,
But he made sure that you did not have to work.
Yes.
You went to school.
I went to school. We moved to California when I was, we moved to Las Vegas when I was 5. Over there, we had family, we had people we knew.
Here you had nobody.
Here we had one.
Just your mom?
Yeah, and we had my uncle and his family. But you know, it's difficult because you still are looking for that connection. And when we moved here, there wasn't all these, you know, Latino grocery stores, and there wasn't all of these things that exist today. It was just, you had to figure it out. Yeah, you had to figure it out, and it was very hard. I didn't speak English. I hadn't had to learn while I was in California because all the services there were provided
in
bilingually.
Spanish. Mm-hmm. But you were little, so
yeah, and
nobody really cared if you what you were thinking. Now, you know what? One of the things that really surprised me is how can you remember things that happened to you when you were 4? So if you are thinking the same thing, I have studied these things. I like psychology a lot, and most of us don't remember things that happens to us when we were 4 or 5 years old. But when the event is traumatic, good traumatic or bad traumatic, we do remember with detail things that happens to us. So today, when I hear the stories of all these kids coming from Central America, I know that they're gonna remember for the rest of your lives. And you are a testament of that.
Yeah, I remember completely the bus, the crossing, you know, even the gas station that my mom took me into to clean my shoes because I was crying about the shoes. I know, and that's why to me it's so difficult to see the difference between me, because now, yes, I speak good English and I've done all the good things that I'm supposed to do, and these children aren't getting that opportunity. And so it's very difficult to see how, you know, a geographic difference between them and me. Even though when we came, it was 92, and there was a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment kind of steaming around, but I think people were more open to having conversations about it. People were more open to, you know, seeing who we were as people. And
you were a super cute girl. So you moved to Las Vegas and you start school in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And you lived your life here.
And it was hard. I didn't speak any English and just got sent to the first day of school, and nobody would play with me. Nobody.
No friends?
No, nobody would even, because I had gotten up to go to the bathroom because my mom had taught me you have to go to the bathroom, and I just got up. I didn't know the rules. I had never been in a classroom like that, and the teacher yelled at me because I didn't understand. And I remember the first day of school, I cried to my mom, and
I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I said I don't want to go back. And from that moment on, for the next 4 months, my mom, there was a fence at my school, and my mom would sit with my brother in the stroller. We had to walk to school. And so she would sit on one side of the fence, and I would sit on the other side because, you know, parents can't come in, and she would eat her lunch with me and feed my brother. And that was horrible because the kids just wouldn't talk to me. To me, it taught me a lot about, you know, my mom after that, because school was half day. And so we would, you know, go back home. She would make food for my dad for him to come home, and then she would walk me to the library. I would watch PBS while she made it, and I used to watch Reading Rainbow, whatever reading show was on. I didn't understand it, but I was catching on to the language, and then she would walk me to the library, and we'd find all the books that had been on the show. We'd get them, bring them home, and then the same thing over again. And within 3 months, I was speaking English. I was one of the first to read in my class. Because I was trying to read every single day. And so for me, that education that my mom and dad stressed on me is really what, to this day, I think has made the difference for me. You know, I was the only kid in my grade that spoke Spanish. I had been put in all these weird ESL classes because they thought I needed to learn English and just all these different things. And so when I got to middle school, my school was more, there were more Latinos. There were more people who spoke Spanish, and that was a shock to me because it wasn't a lot of them, but it was enough that it made a difference to me. And I remember that I started the newspaper at my school. It used to be the monthly newsletter or whatever. I was the one with my advisor, who's a wonderful teacher, that she helped me make it in Spanish. And so we would give out the newsletter in Spanish. We would give out the newsletter, and in the back, one page was in Spanish. Because I was like, my mom and dad want to read this too. And so my mom and dad would always help me with the wording and help me put together things, because the teacher didn't speak Spanish, but she was very encouraging. And I think that teachers for me have been, the most incredible people, because they always encourage you to do better, to, not give up. And I got in 8th grade, I remember the school, the magnet school program came, and I wanted to be an architect. I still wanted to be an architect. And ATEC, Advanced Technologies Academy, they did a presentation, and they were like, we have an architecture program.
And you signed up.
And I said, yes. I said, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. I have all the books. And I went home and I told my mom and dad, and I said, I want to go to the school, and here's the packet. And they said no. And I, as a 13-year-old, I'm sure I said a lot of really mean things to my mom and dad. And I didn't understand why they wouldn't let me pursue my dreams.
Right. It was your dream.
And, it wasn't theirs. It was mine. And they had always said, you can be anything you want to be. And, échale ganas, try hard, and you're going to do good. And then they said no to signing up for the magnet school. And
did they explain to you that that was because you didn't have legal documents?
No, they just, I had always known I was undocumented, but I didn't understand what it meant outside. I didn't understand that that's why I couldn't go to space camp in 4th grade. I didn't understand that that's why I couldn't be a cheerleader in 6th grade, because you had to have the health, the medical waiver. I didn't understand outside of my house. And so when my mom and dad wouldn't let me apply, I just thought they were horrible parents, and they never want to let me do anything. And but to them it was, you have to fill out this. It was a big packet. You have to fill out this packet, and what if they ask her for the paperwork she doesn't have? Because they didn't know. They had never gone to school here. They were just like, if you stay under the water, like, you'll just go to the next school, and there's never been an issue before, so just go to the school you're supposed to.
Be good.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. You didn't apply?
No, I applied.
How did you manage?
My teacher who had helped me, my publications teacher, Miss Wolf, she helped me apply. And I didn't tell her my parents had said no. I just told her my parents didn't speak English, which they did, but I told her they didn't, and so I needed her to proofread everything, and and I was accepted, and I was one of, I think it was 6 students at my middle school that got accepted, because ATEC is a prestigious school. It's still the highest ranked school in Nevada. And so not a lot of kids got in. You had to write an essay and have recommendation letters and grades and all these things.
And you did the CAT program?
I did the CAT program, and I went through with it. And
so you can do architectural drafting, right? That's how it's called?
Yes.
Drafting?
Yes.
Architectural drafting?
I wouldn't say I'm very good at it anymore, but I was very, passionate about it when I was in high school. Until
so when is that you decide you don't want to be an architect anymore?
I didn't decide I didn't want to be an architect. I couldn't go to school.
So at that point, you couldn't take the SAT. You couldn't
take the SAT. Couldn't take the SATs. I applied to UNLV. I applied to a bunch of other colleges, because my goal was to go to a college that did architecture.
But it must have hurt so much.
It was horrible. It was the most horrible thing to work so hard, and for UNLV to tell me, no, you need a social. And I quit. I stopped doing my homework. I stopped everything. And so the last semester of school...
Did you blame your parents?
No, I've never blamed my parents. I blamed myself, because I said, had you done better...
What else could you do better? You could do nothing else better.
I could have gotten better grades. I could have gotten a higher GPA.
That would have taken you anywhere. Back then, if you didn't have a social, it didn't matter. I've seen, with my job, I've seen summa cum laudes, valedictorians from high school that could not go to the university because they didn't have a social security number. So let me tell you, you could have done nothing better. You did everything the right way. It was just that the laws in this country did not allow you to continue on.
Yeah, and in that moment, But think about that being 17.
Yeah,
there was no Facebook.
It's gotta be horrible.
There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter where people are saying undocumented, unafraid. There was no, support group. There was no Dream Big Nevada. There was no best friend. It was
your
me,
pillow,
my mom.
night and day.
I remember my mom took me to the Mexican consulate, and she cried to the consulate and said, "What do I do?" And I applied for Mexican schools. And they said her Spanish isn't good enough.
Because you consider leaving?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Because I was going to be an architect. No matter where, I was going to be an architect. And my dad had always taught me, if you're doing a good job, it doesn't matter where, tú vas a poder hacerlo. Vas a caer de pies, right? My dad would always tell me, you'll land on your feet if you work hard enough. And so...
Now, can you see how you've landed on your feet?
Yes, now, but being that, and I remember, right? I remember I used to listen to the saddest music ever. It was like this weird emo, non-emo period. Now I look back and it was probably depressed, but for me, I was like, oh, I'm so sad. And so I gave up. I really gave up. I stopped doing my homework. I say I give up, but I was still going to school. I was still doing all the things in class that I needed to. I just wasn't applying as much effort. But to me, that was quitting because I could be doing so much better. One of my teachers, I ran into him, and so this was all like within a matter of 3 weeks. And one of my teachers, I ran into him at a football game at another school, and he said, "Hey," he's like, "Where are you going to college?" Because I had always been so applied to everything, and I said, "I'm not." And he's like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I'm not going. Nobody needs college," right? 17. I knew everything. And he's like, no. He's like, "Come here." And he spoke Spanish. He said, "Yo voy a ir." And he said, "I'm going to go." And I said, "Oh, no." Because at that point, we still wanted to be quiet because you're not supposed to tell anybody that you don't have papers. There was no, organizations helping. It was just
Nothing.
2 teachers that were trying to figure it out.
Fighting for your life.
Yeah, and they took me to the counselor, and she told me, she said, yes. She said, "You can go to school. If you go to war," she's like, "and if you kill people, the U.S. gives you citizenship." 17, it was right when we had gone into war, and I'm sitting there going,
not happening.
I don't,
I don't want to kill anybody.
I don't even kill bugs. People choose to go into the military, and that's their own discretion. But for me, that wasn't something that I was ready to do. And they just told me no. And so that was it. And I had kind of resigned myself to, you're going to have to get a babysitting job or cleaning houses or whatever it was that we were going to have to do. Because at that point, even Mexico wasn't an opportunity anymore, because what was I going to do there if my Spanish wasn't good enough? And so that was it. And to me, I gave up, went home that night, and I was like, okay. I told my mom and dad, I said, nothing's going to happen. And they said, okay. They said, well, we're going to have to recalibrate and have a new plan. And it was really sad. And at this whole time, I'm dreading turning 18. Because at 18, in that time, my dad had been waiting for his paperwork, which there was no paperwork. It was a scam that a person had scanned.
Ended up putting him on deportation proceedings.
Yes.
And it's probably the reason why everything that has happened in your life to this day has to do with those deportation proceedings that your dad had to endure for that scam, right?
Yes.
And we're out of high school.
Yes.
And you start working.
Well, no. Mr. Molina had gone to CSN. College, community college, CCSN back then.
He didn't give up.
He didn't give up.
You gave up, but Molina did not give up.
He did not give up, and he kept going, and he called me a few weeks later, and he said, "You're going to CCSN." And I said, "How?" And he's like, "You don't ask questions." He said, "You're going to CCSN." So that, right now, I'm like, oh, thank God he did that. But then I was like, how can I be going to a community college? How? When I got accepted and I got applied and I did all these things, because community college was the thing that, frankly, at ATech, we were all like, no, we can't do that.
So your ego was playing out.
Oh, definitely. Because Because for that split second, I was like, I can't go to a community college.
That's embarrassing.
Right. I was like,
For a nerd, our caliber.
exactly.
Right?
I was like, I might as well just do the babysitting stuff. And then I sat down because you're like, wait. And then I said, oh my God, I'm going to college. That was the excitement. And once that, the first 10 minutes, I was like, because the thing is, yes, I was going to have to explain to my friends, why are you going to a community college? I was going to have to explain to all these people that I had just been competing with, because it was a big competition to get the highest, grades. Why are you going to community college when you beat me, or whatever it was? At 17, right? That's your biggest concern. And then I was like, wait, no, I was like, I'm going to college. And I told my mom and dad, and they were like, oh my God, they were so happy.
A miracle had just happened.
Yes, they were so happy. And, my dad was like, Abed, let's go. What do we need to do?
And your college time has been super long.
Eternal. It has been eternal. I like college so much that I spent 11 years there.
And she has 3 associates and 1 bachelor's. And we are now looking for another time in law school, right? I mean, it seems like it never ends. You're a professional student.
I love school, and but because there was nobody guiding us. You were basically told, watching, Jorge Ramos or, whatever on TV saying, los dreamers. By then, dreamers had started becoming
a word,
a label,
and you knew
identification.
You were one.
I didn't know I was one, but I hoped I was.
Right, and so we were always listening. This is a program that would happen for those who are in school.
In school.
And so you remain in school.
So I said I have to stay in school forever until this passes. And so that was 2006. That was when they did the big May Day rallies and all of that. And I was like, you guys just got to stay in school. But I didn't go ask anybody, because if you ask somebody, they're going to know you're undocumented.
Right.
So I was just like, okay, just pay attention to everything. And that was it.
And that's one of the major problems that our community has, right? That we as immigrants, for fear, we don't look for information. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons Immigrating with Katia exists, because I'm trying to promote the information without anybody asking.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. That's the biggest thing, because now, like I said, had I had this type of movement when I was in high school, of just anybody tweeting and saying, oh, I'm undocumented, we didn't have that. We didn't have anything close to it.
But things change so much. And do you remember that day when President Obama is out right there explaining to all of us that DACA was happening, and you felt this feeling in your heart that, to most of the dreamers that I know that have your age or your experience, it wasn't the happiness of knowing you're going to have papers. It was the happiness of knowing that you weren't going to live anymore in fear.
Yeah. And it wasn't until, for me, 2009, when I was like, I'm a dreamer. And that was through Senator Reid, because I heard him talk about it. That was the first time I heard anybody outside of my house, outside of the news, talk about dreamers. And that was the first time that I said, I'm a dreamer. And so from then on, I was like, I'm a dreamer, I'm a dreamer, I'm a dreamer. And when DACA happened, I remember waking up, one of my friend mentors called me, and he said, despiértate, I know you're asleep. It's like 6 a.m. And he said, there's gonna be a big announcement today, get up. And he's like, get everybody together. And I was like, what's happening, right? Like, what's happening? He's like, just get up, get everybody together. And I'm like, is it good or bad? And he's like, go. There was no explanation, and he was crying, and he's like, just get up. And I trust him with my life, and I said, okay. I got up, right? I called my friends, and we went to one of the organizations that let us use the space in that time. When he said these work permits, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna, it wasn't like you said, like, I'm gonna be able to have a work permit, or it was like, I'm not gonna live with this tension, with this stress, with this fear of, I'm gonna go to the front of the school and they just give me my library card, but I was freaking out. It was literally just, you're gonna be able to focus on things you wanna focus on. You're gonna be able to prioritize things you wanna prioritize. Because up until that moment, there was nothing that we could do without that playing a major role in it. And, I was 24 by then. 2012, I was 24.
She wasn't driving.
I wasn't driving. I had been riding the bus the whole time. My dad had been giving me rides. You know, my friends had given me rides because I never wanted to drive because of the fear that if I get pulled over, I'm gonna get deported. Because there was no driver authorization cards. There was no protections for us. And I know that.
So that employment authorization was major.
Yes.
And wasn't it sweet and sour? Because on one hand, you have an employment authorization, but dad and mom remain undocumented.
And not even just my dad and mom, it was my friends, my friend Jose Antonio, who's an incredible human being. He had turned 31 4 months before.
So he didn't qualify.
He didn't qualify. And I knew my other friend, you know, Dulce, who had not entered the country on time, even though she had been here her whole life, but had left for a period. She wasn't going to qualify either. And she was 16. I was like, they're happy for me. I have to take advantage of this. I have to make the best thing that I can, but also not leave them behind, not leave my mom and dad behind. Because, you know, yes, not everybody's going to qualify at the same time. Not everybody's going to fit in.
We all have a perfect time. God has a perfect plan for all of us, and we all have a moment in our lives. It's part of our story, right?
Yeah. And that was just what I had to keep thinking, because in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm confused about this, because they said June 15th, so the announcement was June 15th, and then they said, we will let you guys know by next week when we open up the applications, right? And then they were like this and that. And so I'm like, I'm sitting here confused, even though I have all these people that are texting me and saying, here's what's happening, and calling me and saying, here's what's happening. And the first thing I thought was, all right, we have to have an educational forum. We have to have, you know, these things set up to help people.
And we have to explain, by then, Astrid was so involved in the Dreamer movement. She was working with several organizations in town and nationally, and she was already a leader in the movement. But behind all of that, there was just the Astrid who was still worried for dad's deportation order, worried for mom and the brother and all his friends.
Yeah.
And that's probably the side of us that nobody sees, right?
Yeah.
We are one persona in front of everybody, but underneath, we are just human beings.
Yes, completely flawed, complex, not knowing half the things I'm doing. And that was difficult, because you are thrown into this spotlight. For me, I was literally thrown into a spot, and I say thrown, but you know, it was a lot of my decisions about something that I had spent 18 years being told, don't talk about. And then in a matter of weeks, months, I was sharing with everybody every single detail of my life. And that was really difficult. And I don't think I ever took the time to understand.
Processed everything that was happening.
Nothing. I just had to go because somebody else needed to know and somebody else had to understand. And that took a toll. Because, you know, some of these stories I tell now, I still get emotional. And they weren't even that close now.
We are blessed that a lot of kids were like you, because we used all of those kids to show this country that having that employment authorization was important, was
and
necessary.
And that was the hardest thing, right? Because at the same time,
you needed to breathe.
I needed to breathe, but I think a lot of times you open yourself up to that criticism from people who were not the poster children. And for me, you know, I was blessed that I had the Senator Reed with me at all times, because he was always mentoring me and he's always still done it. But at the same time, there comes those attacks of, you're too perfect. There's nobody that can do that. And that's hard, because it goes back to 17-year-old me who had given up doing homework. And I'm like, am I supposed to stop doing my homework like now at 27, 28?
No.
And it's like, no, this is who I am. You know, maybe I'm not polished all the time. Maybe I'm not, you know, what I'm supposed to be on camera all the time. But this is who I am. Like, I try and I work my hardest. I try and excel in the things that I do. But it's very difficult from both sides, because también, even with our community members, you're giving a class or you're giving a whatever, and for me, it's a part of me who I am to be helping other people, and so it's very difficult to go from somewhere where I'm like, I only want to be working by myself in a dimly lit room, drawing and making models, versus now I'm in this classroom. Whenever we just do different types of helping the community out, and somebody will come to us and say, thank you so much, because I didn't know where to go. Because I'm like, I didn't know where to go. And thanks to the work that myself and others have done, people have somewhere to go.
So right now, you're still working in the immigrant community.
Yes.
What's the name of your organization?
So I started an organization called Dream Big Nevada.
Dream Big Nevada.
Yes.
And we find Dream Big Nevada online and
online,
Facebook,
social media, everywhere.
Twitter as Dream Big Nevada.
Dream Big Nevada and Dream Big MV.
Dream Big MV.
The state initials, not envious. But that's my happiness. Right now, I get to direct where we're going, and I get to figure out what we want to do, because I know what we need. I am the undocumented person. I can't even say I was, because I'm still undocumented.
You still are.
I have a work permit until October 2020. I don't know what else is going to happen after that. Just like all my peers.
But you and I firmly believe, after everything that has happened in Astrid's lives, that God provides.
Oh, yes.
That He has taken care of you all these
all
time.
the time. And I think that has been something that has been, I remember my abuelita, before she passed away, she was praying every single night, and I'm like, I hope that all that prayers that she did, they hold over for the rest of my life, because she was praying all day long. So I'm like, I hope they hold over, because that's another thing that's, a lot of people have conflicts with their own religion, right? There's every argument that you can ever have on for religion, against religion, but when somebody comes up to you that you just, were able to give them an answer, or you just help them fill out a form, or you just answered a call, and when they tell you, estoy rezando por ti, I'm praying for you, or I have you in mis oraciones.
You can feel it.
You can feel that genuine love. And I think that's what it's about. It's about the love that the community has.
Sharing the love.
Spreading
the love.
And that's all we're really trying to do, is the love that we have for our family, for my family, and that I can extend to other families, because they may not have it at that moment. I think that's the world to me.
It is. I am super, super honored that you were here today, because I wanted to show to others, not the Astrid, the dreamer, the one who fights for everybody. I wanted to show the girl that I know, the one that has never stopped being my fellow nerd, the girl that adores her parents, that still fights for others not to have the fear that she had one day. And I am super proud of you, not for all the work that you do as a drummer, because I am super proud of you for that, but I am super proud of you because you are the biggest example of how to overcome fears, how to love without expecting anything in return. And when you can love others without expecting anything in return, you have found one of the clues to a long, successful life. I'm super proud of you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And this is the story of Astrid, one of our dreamers, of the many, many dreamers we have in the United States. The ones that are fighting right now in courts for DACA to still be alive, and who are trying to convince people in Congress to create a law that will allow these dreamers to remain legally in the United States for good, because they are here not because they wanted to come undocumented or to stay undocumented. They are here because their parents brought them wanting a better future for them. And they deserve to stay because they have learned in our schools, they have mingled with all of us. They are American citizens. They just don't have that birth certificate. But they're here to do great things, to serve others, to help others the same way Astrid does with all the people, all the lives that she touches. So thank you for being here today. Thanks to Astrid for sharing her story with us. and I will see you next Monday in another one of our stories.